I'm Vanessa. I'm 30 years old. I used to think my life was predictable. Stable marriage, zero drama. That morning, I even joked with my husband. Nothing exciting ever happens to us. But everything changed. At my brother's wedding, the sun was perfect. My father and mother were laughing like kids. My brother was glowing beside his new bride. And Daniel, my husband, was holding my hand tightly. I thought it was nerves. Until he leaned toward me and whispered, "We have to go, now." At first I smiled, but then I saw his face dot no smile, no warmth, just panic. His hands were trembling, and his eyes were locked. On the bride, I felt my stomach twist, and what he told me next. It flipped everything I knew upside down, but before I reveal what he saw, you're not the kind of person who ignores a gut feeling, right? That instinct that says something's not right. If you've ever felt that, drop a comment below. Hit the like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because what you're about to hear, it doesn't just stay in the past. It follows you. Let's go back to that moment. The one where it all began to unravel. Michael and I pulled into the Silverado Resort on a bright Thursday afternoon. 3 days before the wedding, Kyle hadn't held back. He'd rented a sprawling private estate on the property, big enough to house the entire wedding party and close family. The moment we passed through the gates, it felt like we'd stepped into a postcard. Vineyards stretched for miles. Manicured gardens bloomed with impossible color. The mountains in the distance gave everything a kind of quiet magic, like we'd wandered into a dream someone else had paid for. As our car slowed near the entrance, I spotted my parents, Grace and Thomas, chatting animatedly with Kyle on the stone steps. Dad's hands were flying through the air like they always did when he was excited. Mom looked stunning in a flowing summer dress, her silver-streaked hair catching every beam of the California sun. There they are. Kyle shouted, bouncing down the steps like a golden retriever in human form. My brother was always like that, big energy, big smile. Even now at 30, he still greeted me like a kid who just opened the best present under the tree. He pulled me into a bear hug that left my feet dangling. "Where's the lucky bride?" I asked as he finally let go and turned to Michael with a handshake that became a half hug. "She's with her bridesmaids, hair and makeup stuff," Kyle said, beaming. "You'll meet her tonight at the welcome dinner. You're going to love Madison. She's amazing." I'd only seen Madison twice before, once over a quick Christmas dinner, and again at their engagement party 3 months ago. Both times, she'd been polite, friendly, but distant. Kyle had met her less than a year ago at a charity fundraiser in San Francisco. 5 months later, they were engaged. And now wedding weekend. Your room's in the East Wing, 2nd floor, Kyle said, grabbing a suitcase from the trunk. Mom and Dad are in the West Wing. Madison and I are in the guest house because, tradition. The room was beautiful. King bed, private balcony overlooking the vineyard. A bathroom bigger than our first apartment. As I unpacked, Michael flopped down on the bed, running his hand over the sheets. "This place must cost a fortune," he muttered, clearly impressed. "Most of it's on Madison's parents," I said. "They're rich. Her dad owns half of Seattle." That night's welcome dinner was held in the state courtyard. Fairy lights dangled from tree branches. Long tables curved into a soft U shape, draped with linen and wildflowers. Moment we stepped in, I saw her. Madison. She wore a simple white cocktail dress, her blonde hair cascading in perfect waves. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover, tall, poised, effortlessly elegant. The kind of woman who made you second-guess everything about yourself without saying a word. "Audrey," she called out, arms open as she walked toward me. "I'm so glad you're here. Kyle says you two were inseparable as kids. I want all the embarrassing stories." There was something polished, maybe rehearsed about her enthusiasm, but I brushed it off. Pre-wedding nerves, maybe. I introduced her to Michael. She'd only met him briefly at the engagement party. The handsome doctor. She smiled, eyes bright. Kyle told me you just made attending at Chicago Memorial. That's seriously impressive. Michael looked surprised, she remembered. Thank you, he said, smiling. And congratulations on, she added, pausing just long enough for me to wonder if she meant it. Finishing your MBA at Stanford. Kyle says you're already fielding job offers left and right. Oh, it was nothing, I replied, smiling. But even then, something in me tensed. And I didn't know why. Madison brushed off the comment with a casual wave. My father has a lot of business connections, she said. I've been lucky. Throughout dinner, I watched her float through the room like she'd done it 1,000 times. Smooth, confident, effortless. She greeted each guest by name, remembered the tiniest details about their lives, and made every single one feel like the most important person at the table. She gave extra attention to my father, asking thoughtful questions about his investment firm, leaning in as if his every word held secret meaning, and he seemed to melt under it. She's good, Michael whispered beside me. A real charmer. I nodded, watching Madison laugh. At something my dad said, she makes Cal happy, I replied. That's all that matters. The next day, the rehearsal went off without a hitch. Madison ran it like a 5-star general in designer heels, every movement efficient, every instruction clear. Wrapped in that calm, breezy persona that never seemed to crack, but something did crack just for a second. I'd gone into the main house to find a bathroom. As I passed one of the bedrooms, I heard her voice inside, sharp, clipped. Not the Madison everyone else saw. I don't care what it takes, she snapped. Just handle it. We've come too far to screw this up. I froze. Then she spotted me in the hallway, and instantly, her whole face softened. Audrey, she said, with a bright smile. Just a minor flower emergency. Nothing to worry about. Her voice returned to its usual warm melody as she brushed past me. But something else caught my eye. She was holding a phone in a blue case. Later that day, I saw her texting on a phone with a red case. It felt off, but I told myself it was nothing. Lots of people have 2 phones, work and personal, right? That night at the rehearsal dinner, Madison gave a beautiful speech. She spoke about how she dreamed of finding someone like Kyle, how welcomed she felt by her family. My mother wiped away tears. My father watched with pride. It was perfect. But as Michael and I walked back to our room under the stars, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something wasn't right. The second day of wedding festivities began with champagne on the terrace. Madison was already there when we arrived. Glowing, polished, radiant, like she hadn't just hosted a dinner hours earlier. Good morning, you two, she called out. I asked the chef to prepare something special for us. She smiled, but my eyes were drawn to her again throughout. Breakfast, she kept checking her phone, stepping away often, taking call after call in private. At one point, I went inside to grab a sweater, and that's when I saw her, standing in a side room, face tense, voice low. But the words were clearer. Listen, we can't afford any mistakes, she said. Then came the dagger. Everything needs to be in place by Sunday. The accounts should be accessible by then. When she spotted me, she ended the call so fast it was almost suspicious. With a quick eye roll, she muttered, "Wedding. Planner drama. There's always something on fire." I gave a polite nod, but I remembered clearly her planner was a man named Jeffrey, and the voice she just called Sweetie sounded unmistakably female. Back at breakfast, I'd noticed something else. Madison had switched phones. The blue case from earlier was gone. Now it was the same red one I saw her using yesterday. She walked off again. I leaned toward Michael and whispered, "Didn't she have a different phone this morning?" He shrugged. "Maybe she uses one for wedding stuff and one for personal," but I could tell. The change unsettled him too. The rest of the day unfolded in a flurry of wedding festivities. Madison had arranged a vineyard tour for the guests. While the bridal party was shuffled off for dress fittings and last-minute prep, I wasn't the maid of honor. That title belonged to her cousin Stephanie, but as a bridesmaid, I spent most of the afternoon trapped in layers of satin and hairspray dot inside the fitting room. I watched how Madison moved. There was a subtle sharpness to her, commands disguised as suggestions, praise laced with criticism. "Alyssa, honey," she cooed sweetly, "this hairstyle looks so much better than what you originally wanted." Thank goodness we changed it. Alyssa gave a stiff smile. Her eyes didn't. When the stylist suggested a slight tweak to Madison's intricate updo, her eyes flashed, just for a second. She caught herself, then smiled tightly. "I think we should stick with the original. It's my special day after." Oh, during a break, I chatted with Stephanie, the maid of honor. Somehow Madison's Stanford MBA came up. Stephanie blinked, confused. "Stanford? I thought she went to UCLA." Then she quickly backtracked. "But maybe I'm mixing things up. There are so many cousins. Hard to keep track." Before I could press further, Madison appeared out of nowhere. She slid her arm into Stephanie's and chirped, "What are you two gossiping about?" There was a sweetness to her tone, but her eyes, sharp as glass, just getting to know each other, I said, smiling. Later that afternoon, something happened that left a chill in my spine. Jeffrey, the actual wedding planner, approached Madison, worried about the seating chart. Before he could finish, she snapped, "I don't pay you to bring me problems, Jeffrey. I pay you to fix them." Her tone was icy, dismissive, brutal. Then she noticed me watching Dot. In an instant, she transformed. "Oh, Jeffrey, I'm so sorry," she said, touching his arm gently. "Pre-wedding stress is eating me alive. Please arrange the tables however you think best." Michael looked relieved, but guarded, like a dog that's just been kicked by the owner it trusted most. That night, during the bridesmaids' dinner, Madison kept stepping away to take calls. Every time she returned, she'd force a bright smile and raise another toast, but I noticed the tension tightening around her eyes. Something was off. Even if she tried to bury it under charm. As we were leaving the restaurant, I spotted Michael waiting in the lobby. He'd been out with the groomsmen and Kyle, but it looked like they wrapped up early. "How was your evening?" I asked as we walked back toward our room. He hesitated. "Interesting," he said thoughtfully. "Kyle's friends are great." "But what?" Michael glanced at me, uncertain. "It's probably nothing, just some of the stories Kyle told tonight about how he met Madison. They don't line up with what she's told people." My steps slowed. "Like what?" "Well, Kyle says they met at a charity auction. He outbid her on a vacation package, and that's how it started. But one of her friends mentioned tonight that Madison always tells people she met Kyle after spilling coffee on him at a cafe." I frowned. That was strange. Maybe they're both right. Maybe they had two encounters and just remember the first differently. Michael nodded, but the doubt in his eyes lingered. And truthfully, I felt it too. Back in our room, as I got ready for bed, I kept replaying the past few days in my head. The little cracks in Madison's stories. The polished smile that sometimes slipped, revealing something colder underneath. But I kept telling myself, weddings bring stress. Maybe I was being unfair. Maybe I just wasn't used to seeing my brother fall so fast, so hard. Still. As I lay down and closed my eyes, a quiet voice inside wouldn't let me rest. Something wasn't right. The next morning, the sky was a painter's dream, blue and wide, with a soft breeze swaying the trees. From my window, I could see the wedding team setting up rows of white chairs in the garden. A floral arch was rising at the far end, covered in roses and ivy. I took a deep breath. Whatever doubts I had, today wasn't about me. It was Kyle's day. He was completely in love, and maybe love saw things I didn't. The bridal suite was a swirl of movement, laughter, curling irons, perfume. And in the center of it all sat Madison, calm, radiant, composed. A makeup artist dabbed her face, while a stylist pinned the final touches into her elegant updo. She looked flawless. Audrey, she called when she spotted me. "Come sit." She pointed to a small box on the vanity. Inside was a thin silver bracelet with a single pearl. "It's my thank you," she said, meeting my eyes in the mirror. "Kyle tells me you're his rock. Your approval, it means everything." The words hit me like a tide. I felt a pang of guilt for every doubt I'd entertained. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Thank you." Later, as the ceremony began, it felt like a fairy tale. The sunlight streamed perfectly through the trees, casting golden ribbons across the aisle. Kyle stood at the altar, handsome and nervous in his tux, and when Madison appeared, stepping out in her designer gown, the entire crowd fell silent, then a soft gasp. I looked at my brother's face. He was undone, completely distraught as Madison walked down the aisle. The look in Kyle's eyes, pure awe and devotion, brought tears to mine. Their vows were deeply personal, raw. She spoke of finding a home in him and in our family. Her voice cracked at all the right moments, like a scene perfectly written for emotion. It was hard not to believe it, as they exchanged rings. I pushed away the whisper of doubt that had been lingering in my chest. Whatever reservations I had, this woman clearly loved my brother. At the reception, Madison was flawless, like she'd stepped out of a wedding magazine. She floated between tables with ease, charming every guest with perfect posture, perfect smiles, perfect timing. She was especially attentive to my parents, never letting their glasses empty, always pulling them into conversation with her side of the family. I say family in mental air quotes because something didn't sit right. There were hardly any relatives. Just Stephanie, her so-called cousin and maid of honor, an older couple she introduced as her aunt and uncle. And of course, her parents. Her father stood out, elegant, silver hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing, but he spoke rarely. He simply watched as Michael and I danced beneath the string lights. I leaned in and asked, "Where are all her Stanford friends? Or childhood friends?" "It feels like everyone here is either Kyle's or her parents' people." Michael frowned. "I was thinking the same thing," he said. "And have you noticed her accent shifts?" "What do you mean?" "She talks differently depending on who she's with." He was right. With my parents, she had that relaxed West Coast tone. But with her uncle, her cadence and expressions completely changed. Maybe she's just the kind of person who mirrors others without realizing. I offered, but even as I said it, I didn't buy it. As the night went on, I started watching her more closely. She wasn't just mingling. She was maneuvering. I noticed her subtly guiding certain people together and keeping others apart. She especially kept my dad deep in conversation with her own father. Their talk seemed intense, focused. At one point, I caught a snippet. "Thomas, with your background in sustainable energy and my contacts in the Asian markets, we could do something revolutionary," Madison's father said. My dad was nodding, excited. "I've been looking for a way into those markets for years. The regulations are brutal. I have ways around that," her father replied, smiling. But the smile never reached his eyes. Later, I caught Michael snapping photos. But not the usual wedding shots. He was deliberately photographing Madison with different groups of people. When I asked him why, he just shrugged, just capturing. But something about his tone told me he'd seen what I was starting to feel. Memories, he said, but there was something in his voice that didn't sit right. That same subtle tension I'd seen before when he faced the toughest medical cases, when the signs pointed to something serious. But he didn't have the proof yet. The celebration stretched past midnight. By the time Michael and I made it back to our room, I was drained, body and mind, but more than tired, I felt uneasy. Like something had been quietly pulling at the edges of a perfect day. "Did you enjoy yourself?" Michael asked as we got ready for bed. "Yes," I replied out of habit, then hesitated. "Mostly, did you?" He paused before answering. "It was an interesting day." That answer lingered in the room. We didn't press further, didn't argue, just fell into a restless sleep, disturbed by a quiet we didn't understand yet. The post-wedding brunch was set for 11 a.m. in the garden behind the estate. Despite the late night, most guests dragged themselves out of bed. Bloody Marys and mimosas flowed like medicine, and everyone looked like they needed it. Kyle and Madison sat at the center table, glowing with the kind of exhaustion that looks good in photos. She had transformed again, this time into the role of the effortlessly elegant bride. White sundress, hair in a loose ponytail, glowing just enough. Michael barely spoke that morning. He kept checking his phone, stepping away for quick whispered calls. When I asked who he was talking to, he waved it off. "Hospital stuff," he said, but that wasn't like him. When we were on vacation, which was rare, he was usually all in, present, focused. We sat with my parents at the family table, both still riding the high of yesterday's perfection. "Isn't she just wonderful?" my mother said, nodding toward Madison. She was laughing with one of the groomsmen, her smile like it belonged on a magazine cover, so poised, so accomplished. "She's quite the catch," my father added, his voice dropping slightly. "Her father's network could open some real doors." "We had a fascinating talk last night about potential ventures." I blinked. "You're not actually thinking about investing with someone you just met? Are you?" My dad's expression shifted, part offended, part patronizing. "Robert isn't just someone, Audrey. He's built a serious portfolio across multiple sectors. We're having lunch in Chicago next week to talk numbers." Before I could push back, Michael's phone buzzed again. He checked it, frowned, then stood up without a word. "Excuse me," he said, stepping away. I watched him pace the lawn, tense, focused, his voice rising and falling as he gestured, clearly rattled. 15 minutes later, he came back to the table. His face had changed, grim, closed, and then Madison appeared. She glided toward us, like nothing was wrong. "Thomas," she said, smiling at my father. "I meant to ask your thoughts on the Sherman portfolio. I hear you've had some impressive success with diversification strategies." My father looked genuinely impressed. He leaned in, eager to share the intricate logic behind his investment strategy, a system he developed over decades, refined with obsession, but something didn't sit right. This wasn't public knowledge. These weren't tips you could Google or overhear at a country club. They were trade secrets, his legacy. And somehow, Madison already knew them. As the conversation veered into technical jargon I barely understood. Michael leaned toward me, his breath brushing my ear. "We need to leave, now." I blinked, thrown off by the urgency in his voice. "What? We can't just walk out in the middle of brunch." "The wedding was only yesterday. Trust me, Audrey," he said, low and firm. "We have to go. I'll explain, but not here." Something in his tone made the hairs on my arm stand up. Was it a hospital emergency? A patient? No, he said, eyes flicking discreetly toward Madison. It's about the bride. My pulse spiked. What are you talking about? I whispered sharply. Michael's jaw tensed. You really didn't notice, did you? She's not who she says she is. Not even close. The color drained from my face, and then came the gut punch. Madison Wilson doesn't exist, he said, eyes locked on mine. Your brother just married a con artist. She's been targeting your family, specifically your father, for months. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. That's insane. How would you even know that? I'll show you everything, he said. But we need privacy. Michael stood abruptly, slipping into his surgeon persona like the second skin. I'm so sorry, he said to the table, voice apologetic but composed. I just got called in for an emergency surgery. We need to get back to Chicago immediately. My mother's face fell. Oh no. Can't another doctor take it? It's a complicated case, he said smoothly. I've been managing it for weeks. I wouldn't leave unless it was absolutely necessary. Still stunned, I watched as Michael offered our goodbyes to Kyle and Madison. She played her part perfectly, disappointed but gracious, concerned but composed. I was hoping we'd have more time to get to know each other, she said as she hugged me. But we'll have plenty of chances when you visit San Francisco. For a moment, her cheek pressed against mine. And in that split second, I saw it, a flicker in her eyes, cold, calculating, like she was already 10 moves ahead. 20. Minutes later, we were on the road, the estate shrinking behind us in the rearview mirror. I was still reeling when Michael suddenly pulled over at a scenic overlook. Miles from the house, without a word, he pulled out his phone and opened a folder full of screenshots, documents, and photos. I knew something was off the day we arrived. He began. Little things, inconsistencies in her stories. The way she redirected conversations. It reminded me of a patient I treated last year, faked symptoms just to get prescriptions. I blinked in disbelief. So you decided she was a con artist because she reminded you of a drug-seeking patient? My voice was sharp, disbelieving, but inside, something in me was starting to crack. No, Michael said, steady but intense. I looked into her because my instincts wouldn't shut up. Something about her felt wrong. I stared at him, confused. After the rehearsal dinner, he continued, I called a buddy from college. He works in private security now. Owed me a favor. I asked him to run a quick check. You ran a background investigation on Kyle's fiancé? My voice cracked with disbelief. You didn't tell anyone? Michael didn't flinch. I was hoping I was wrong, he said. But what I got back this morning, he pulled out his phone and handed it to me. On the screen was a Massachusetts driver's license, name Erica Donovan, the photo. Without a doubt, it was Madison, just darker hair, slightly older. But it was her. This is from 3 years ago, Michael explained. She was living in Boston, married to a hedge fund manager, Lawrence Peaton. She vanished with nearly $2 million from their shared accounts, right after he introduced her to his biggest clients. My fingers scrolled the screen slowly, trembling. Photo after photo, Madison, but with different names, different hairstyles, different lives. There were news clippings about fraud, investment scams, disappearing funds. This can't be real, I whispered. But the proof was right there in my hands. She's used 3 confirmed identities in the last 5 years, Michael said quietly. Madison Wilson, Erica Donovan, Catherine Miller. Each story was the same. She'd marry into money, gain access to family finances, then vanish. Clean sweep. But Kyle doesn't have millions, I said. Why target him? Michael's voice darkened. She wasn't after Kyle. She was after Dad. Kyle was just the doorway. My chest tightened. I looked down at the evidence again. Police reports, marriage certificates, a bulletin from the FBI warning about a woman matching her description. Wanted for questioning in multiple financial fraud cases across the country. She's been doing this for at least 7 years, Michael said. And she's not working alone. My friend found signs she usually has help. People pretending to be family, business partners, even fake friends to build trust. My cousin, I whispered, suddenly remembering Stephanie's weird reaction when I asked about Madison's college. Her parents? Actors, Michael said, nodding, the man posing as her dad. He's been involved in at least 2 other cons. He plays the same role, gets close to rich business owners, and lures them into fake investments. I kept scrolling. Marriage records showed Erica Donovan married Lawrence Payton in Boston. Then Catherine Miller tied the knot with Richard Hoffman in Seattle 2 years later. What happened to them? I asked, already fearing the answer. Michael's jaw tensed. Payton lost everything, had to declare bankruptcy. Hoffman was quicker, recovered some of it, but he still lost over $1 million. I felt sick. She's going after Dad now. I said, my voice barely audible. That's why she's been asking about his business. All those casual questions about investments, strategies. It all made sense now, and none of it was innocent at brunch. Dad casually mentioned that. He and Madison's father were planning to meet next week. Investment opportunities, he called it. Michael gave me a look. I'm guessing that meeting would have ended with him wiring funds straight into their hands. That hit hard. Suddenly, everything that hadn't made sense came rushing back. Madison's second phone, her shifting accent. The way she always seemed to know details about my father's business that I never told her. We have to tell Kyle, I said quietly. My heart ached not just for my brother, but for my parents too. They were being pulled into something none of us fully understood. We need to be strategic, Michael warned. People like Madison, whatever her real name is, know how to deflect. If we accuse her too soon, she either vanish with whatever she's already stolen, or worse, convince your family we're the ones lying. I swallowed hard. He was right. She was polished, calculated. What do we do? I asked. We gather real evidence, he said. Hard proof. Then hit her with everything at once, no. Warning, no chance to prepare. It made sense. But the thought of confronting her sent a chill down my spine. How do we get more evidence? I asked. Michael thought for a moment. Your father's financial data? Has Madison had any access to it? Passwords, devices, account info. I racked my brain. Dad keeps everything on his laptop. And he's careful, but yesterday he told me he was showing projections to Madison's father for a possible joint venture. Michael's face tightened. We need to check if that laptop was compromised. He grabbed the keys. We need to move fast. Based on what I've read about people like her, the final move usually happens within days of the wedding while everyone's still distracted. We drove to a nearby town and checked into a small hotel under a different name. Michael kept texting his security contact. Meanwhile, I made a call to Jen, a close friend who worked in cybersecurity. Jen, I need a huge favor, I said. I gave her a quick summary of the situation. I need to know if anyone's accessed my dad's financial systems. Anything strange. Anything. Recent. She was stunned, rightfully so. But Jen had always been grateful to my father for helping her land her first job out of college. I'll help, she said. But I'll need his permission and credentials. Otherwise, this isn't exactly legal. So I called Dad. I spun a quick story about Michael meeting investment models for a colleague. Asked if Jen could access some of his data for reference. He didn't hesitate, gave me the info right away. 2 hours later, Jen called me back. Her voice was tight. Someone's been in his system. she said. They installed a keylogger 3 days ago. It's been tracking everything: passwords, account info, messages with his financial institutions. My blood ran cold. Can you trace it? It came from a device on the same Wi-Fi network as your dad's, she said. Meaning whoever did this was physically present at the wedding venue. She'd already disabled the keylogger, changed the most critical passwords, but the damage? Already done, I thanked her, promising I'd explain everything later. When I told Michael, his expression hardened. We need to go back, he said, tonight. Before they had a chance to use what they'd gathered, we were already driving back. To the estate. We pulled in just as dinner was ending. I didn't even pause to eat. I just pulled out my phone and texted Kyle, told him it was urgent, that it was about Madison. He met us in the library minutes later. His face was tense, eyes flicking between us, jaw tight. What's going on? He asked. Why the secrecy? Why did you disappear like that? I took a breath so deep it hurt. Kyle, what I'm about to say won't be easy to hear. But you need to know Madison isn't who she says she is. His whole body tensed. His face shut down. What are you even talking about? He snapped up. Michael stepped in, flipping open his laptop. She's not Madison Wilson, he said. The woman you married has used at least 3 different identities in the past 5 years. Kyle let out a bitter laugh. This is insane. You've both lost it. Please, I said, just look. For the next 20 minutes, we showed him everything. The aliases, the fake histories, the pattern of quick marriages, followed by drained accounts. We even found evidence of a keylogger installed on our father's computer. Michael walked him through every file. With each revelation, Kyle's face grew paler. This can't be real, he whispered. We've been together almost a year. I would have known. I would have seen something. Michael looked at him softly. She's good, Kyle. These people, they're professionals. They build entire worlds around their lies. Kyle's voice cracked. If that's true, then none of it was real. Not the vows, not the love, not a damn thing. He looked shattered. I reached out to him. I wanted to hold him. But before I could, the library door opened. My father stepped in, confusion written across his face. What's going on? He asked, and behind him, Madison, you all just vanished after dinner, she said, looking between us. Kyle turned to me. I gave him a single nod. Dad, he said, his voice steadier than I expected. You need to see something. It's about Madison. At first, my father reacted like Kyle had, denial, then outrage. Not at Madison, at us, but Michael was calm, patient. He walked him through every piece of the puzzle. When he showed him the unauthorized access to the financial accounts, the anger drained from my father's face, replaced by something far more serious. Cold understanding. We need to confront her, he said. His voice had an edge I rarely heard. Before this goes any further, we should get the police involved, Michael offered, but Dad shook his head. Not yet. First, I want to hear it from her. Kyle hadn't said a word in minutes, just stared at his phone, at a wedding photo that already looked like a lie. Then, without warning, he spoke. I want to be the one to confront her, he said quietly. Alone? No, I said immediately. She's dangerous, Kyle. You don't know what she's capable of. She's my wife, he snapped, the word catching in his throat. If anyone's going to ask for the truth, it should be me, we argued, paced, negotiated. In the end, we struck a compromise. Kyle would speak to her, but we'd all be there, watching, listening, protecting. My father insisted on one more thing, that my mother be present too. She had a right to know what kind of woman had been welcomed into our family. We gathered in my parents' suite. Tension already thick before she even arrived. A quick message had been sent to Madison. There was a family emergency, and we needed to speak. No details, just enough to lure her into the room. While we waited, I pulled Kyle aside. He looked like a ghost in a tux, pale, hollow. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" I asked softly. He hesitated, then nodded. Double quotes, no, but I need to. Do it anyway. Moments later, Madison walked in, perfectly dressed for the role. Jeans, a neutral sweater, ponytail neatly pulled back. She looked like the embodiment of concern and casual grace. The newlywed wife, ready to support her in-laws through whatever storm was brewing. "What's going on?" she asked, eyes scanning the room. Did something happen? Silence clung to the walls. Then Kyle stepped forward. "We know Madison," he said, voice low. "Or should I say Erica? Or is it Catherine now?" He tilted his head. "Which one do you prefer these days?" A tiny twitch, barely visible, crossed her face. A flicker of something, cold calculation. Then it was gone, replaced by a mask of innocent confusion. "Kyle, what are you talking about? You're scaring me." Michael walked over to the desk and opened his laptop. "We have the documents," he said, his tone clinical. "Marriage certificates, police records, news reports, articles about men you've defrauded under different names." Madison laughed. It was the kind of laugh that didn't quite reach the eyes. "This is insane," she said. "You must have me confused with someone else, someone who looks like me." "No confusion," my father cut in, his voice like steel. "We also discovered spyware installed on my computer. During the wedding, someone was trying to access my financial accounts." Madison's eyes darkened. Her gaze drifted subtly to the door, calculating. "Don't even think about it," I warned. "Security's been instructed not to let you leave the property." Total bluff. But she didn't. No, her voice shifted, colder now. "I don't know what kind of twisted game this is, but I won't stand here and be accused of crimes I didn't commit." She turned to Kyle. "Surely, you don't believe this?" Kyle's face was pure heartbreak. "I want to," he whispered. "I want to believe you more than anything." He took a shaky breath. "Then tell me, why is there a marriage certificate from Boston 4 years ago under the name Erica Donovan, married to Lawrence Payton?" For a moment she held it, together, still clinging to the act, but when she looked around, saw the certainty in every face, something inside her snapped. Her shoulders squared. Her smile vanished, and just like that, the mask dropped. "Well," she said, voice now crisp, emotionless, and laced with an unfamiliar accent, "this is certainly unexpected." She nodded toward Michael. "I underestimated you, Dr. Mitchell. Most people see what they want to see." My mother gasped, stepping back like she'd just seen a ghost. Kyle staggered slightly, as if the shift in Madison's persona had physically hit him. His voice came out in a whisper. "Why?" A pause heavy with grief. "Was any of it real?" "You were kind," she said, almost like she was reminiscing. "I didn't hate our time together, if that's what you're asking." Then her voice shifted, icy and sharp. "But business is business." My father's jaw clenched. "And what business would that be? Defrauding people? Destroying lives?" She smiled, but her eyes stayed empty. "I prefer to call it wealth redistribution," she said. "Men like you have more than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. I just help spread the wealth around." "To yourself," I snapped. She shrugged, unfazed. "I provide a service. I give people what they crave, love, attention, validation. It just happens to come at a price, that's the deal." Michael stepped forward. "Where are your accomplices? The ones who pretended to be your family?" "They're gone," she said with a smirk. "Left last night. Standard protocol after the main event." Main event, that's what she called the wedding. The coldness in her voice made my stomach lurch. I couldn't even look at Kyle. I couldn't. Imagine how he was processing this. You're not walking away from this, my father said. We've documented everything. The police will do what, exactly? She cut in, voice dripping with arrogance. Charge me with marrying a man who gave me access to his life willingly. I haven't taken anything from you, Thomas. Not yet, and Kyle signed a prenup, quite a generous one if I recall. Michael's voice sliced through the tension. A prenup signed under a false identity. No court will honor that. For the first time, Madison flinched out just barely. Maybe, she said. But prosecuting me means admitting how badly you were fooled. Think about that headline. Prominent Chicago investor nearly duped by fake socialite. She let it hang in the air like poison. Is that the kind of publicity your firm can afford? Silence. A suffocating silence, because she wasn't wrong. A scandal like that could ruin my father's reputation. Clients would flee. Investors would question everything, but then Kyle stepped forward. And his voice didn't shake. You forgot something, he said. The other men you conned, they probably stayed quiet out of shame. But together, they show a pattern. Enough for federal charges. Madison's eyes flickered, a flash of panic, before she forced herself back into her mask. Wow, this has been entertaining, she said, reaching for her purse. But I think our relationship has come to an end. She turned toward the door. I'll be leaving now. Don't bother trying to find me. Actually, my father said, pulling out his phone, while we've been talking, my security team has frozen all my accounts and notified the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. She stopped. Her spine went rigid. They're very interested. In speaking with you, he added calmly. You're bluffing. She hissed. He turned the phone toward her. An email confirmation glowed on the screen. The FBI had already responded. You have two choices, he said, steady as steel. Wait here for them, or run with nothing but the clothes you're wearing. Either way, your operation is finished. Your team's gone. You're alone. Her mask shattered. She looked around the room, searching for a crack, an exit, anything. And then her eyes locked on Kyle. Her voice dropped, soft and manipulative. I could have made you happy, she whispered. We could have had a beautiful life. Kyle just stood there, shaking his head slowly. His face said it all: rage, betrayal, and deep, aching pity. None of it was real, he whispered. You never even existed. The hours after. Our confrontation with Madison blurred into a surreal fog. Statements to the police. Interviews with the FBI, and bombshell after bombshell dropping without warning. Her real name? Alexandra Petrovic. Born in Belgrade, Serbia. She'd been conning people since she was a teenager, low-level scams at first, then more complex fraud. Marriage, investments, trust, all turned into weapons. The FBI had been chasing her for years. Always one step behind. The people who had pretended to be her parents and relatives. Professional con artists, part of a nationwide crew. Some were known to law enforcement, others still ghosts. Kyle was shattered. When the sheriff's deputies placed Alexandra Madison into the back of a police cruiser. He nearly collapsed. They had to hold him upright. His wife of less than 48 hours, gone in handcuffs. The marriage would be annulled, of course, but the emotional wreckage, that couldn't be erased with paperwork. For the guests, the story was sanitized. They were told she'd misrepresented herself and the marriage was ending. Most assumed it was about a green card or a buried secret. Only immediate family knew the full extent of the lie. In the days that followed, the truth unraveled like a thread caught in a storm. We learned just how close she had come to pulling it all off. The keylogger on Dad's laptop had logged enough sensitive data to breach multiple accounts holding millions. Had we waited even a day longer, she and her crew could have disappeared with a fortune. I still can't believe I was that blind, Dad said a week later as we sat in his study. His voice was low, like he was speaking to himself. I'm supposed to be good at reading people. It's literally my job. She was a professional, Michael said. This is what she does. What she's done for years. You can't blame yourself, Kyle sat across from us, hollow. He'd moved into our parents' house temporarily, unable to even look at the apartment he once shared with her. I keep playing it over in my head, he murmured. Every moment, every conversation. How did I not see it? There were signs, I admitted, but they were buried. And she was a master at misdirection. The most chilling part came from the FBI report. Alexandra hadn't chosen Kyle by accident. She'd targeted him after researching our father's company and discovering it. Managed over $300 million in assets. She'd built a fake life to match. Social media histories, photos, contacts, fake references, paid actors, ready to vouch. If anyone got suspicious, but nothing hit harder than what they found in a storage unit registered under one of her aliases. Inside were files. Detailed profiles of our entire family. Our habits, our weaknesses, our schedules, our preferences. She had studied us like specimens. She had studied us, watched us, looking for the best way to infiltrate our lives and earn our trust. In the months that followed, we focused on healing, on rebuilding everything she had shaken. My father tightened security across all his accounts, protocols, firewalls, background checks. He no longer left anything to chance. My mother poured herself into helping Kyle. She booked therapy sessions, made his favorite meals, did everything she could to make sure he was never left alone with the weight of what had happened. Michael and I stayed in Chicago for 2 weeks after the wedding. Not because we had to, but because we couldn't leave him in that state. We called Kyle every day. Sometimes we didn't even talk, just stayed on the line with him, letting the silence say what words couldn't. Little by little, the darkness began to lift. 3 months after the wedding, Kyle made a decision. He moved to Chicago, found a job at a tech firm downtown, rented a modest apartment near my parents' place. 6 months out, he went on his first date, just coffee. Nothing serious, but it was something, a step toward something normal. A year after the wedding, we gathered around a dinner table. No fancy setting, no occasion, just it wasn't a celebration. It was a quiet acknowledgement of how far we'd come. Kyle smiled again that night, made jokes, talked about a promotion. My father had started to trust himself again, though now with a healthy skepticism that hadn't been there before. You know what I've learned from all this? Kyle said, pushing away his plate. It's not that people can't be trusted. It's that trust has to be earned, slowly, not given away in a rush of feelings. And real love, my mother added gently, real love doesn't pull you away from the people who care about you. It brings you closer. Under the table, Michael squeezed my hand. His strength had carried me through. His instincts had protected us all. And through it all, I never once doubted him, not even when it seemed impossible. The case against Alexandra Petrovic was still working its way through the system. She'd been linked to at least 5 similar scams across the country. Federal prosecutors were confident she'd serve serious time. Some of her accomplices had already been arrested. But the man who posed as her father, the one pulling the strings from the shadows, was still out there. The FBI believed he was the mastermind, using women like Alexandra to front the schemes, while he operated unseen, just out of reach. As for us, we came out stronger, wiser, More awake dot, we learn to trust our instincts, to question what looks perfect, to hold tight to the people who keep us grounded dot. We were targeted because we were close, because we believed in each other, but in the end, that bond, it's what saved us dot. We were tested, but not broken, and Kyle, though still healing, had begun to look toward the future again. The woman he once loved might have been a lie, but the strength he found in surviving her, that part was real. Maybe the marriage didn't survive. Maybe the version of her that Kyle fell in love with never truly existed, but his ability to love, the way he gave his heart so completely, that was real. And one day, I believe someone will come along who truly deserves it. If you've ever felt that uneasiness deep in your gut, that whisper telling you something isn't quite right about someone, a stranger, a friend, or even someone close, I hope you'll remember what happened to us. Don't ignore those instincts. Look deeper. Real love doesn't hide behind masks. It holds steady, even under pressure. It invites questions, and it survives the answers. Have you ever had an experience where your intuition tried to warn you, even when everything looked perfect on the surface? Share it with us in the comments. You never know who might need to hear your story, and if this one resonated with you, if it made you reflect or feel seen, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might be facing their own quiet doubts. You're sharper than you think. Women like you don't just sense the truth. They see it long before others do dot. Thank you for being here. And above all, I wish you love that's honest and a life built on trust that never needs to be questioned.